Hi. So I decided to do this thing. Let's say, for some that you know, it's easy to call entity removal. For others, let's say if you have an unwanted personality, a beingness, a characteristic that shows up in your life, a trait, a personality, whatever, that is kind of like making things harder for you daily, you don't want to have it. It's kind of like getting in your way of living a full life. So I'll show this little technique we're doing that might help you out, and you can do it on yourself as you go with me. And I'll have more videos coming up on this, and just like it's kind of like exploring, see how well this little thing is working out and what can we do with it. So the thing is called parts party. You might have seen my videos with Patricia. It's been me, Rich, and Eric from Deciphering My Experience. Please check out this channel as well. And like this, the whole technique, the point is to identify beings in your space. Usually, it can be done on aspects of self. For example, if you are right here, just working on your life, and then you look at like when I was a kid, I had a great sense of humor. I had a great confidence. I was interested in everything. I could touch every single bug, inspire in every single thing, and love them and have no fear. And you look at those parts of you, and you're like, and it's gone. Like you're just not who you used to be. And like, yeah, I've changed, but I kind of want them back. So with that in mind, we can communicate with those parts. And I've covered those videos and like I'll make more about it. But right now I want to focus on the parts that we don't want to have. Maybe the lazy part. Maybe the part that constantly fails, that is unlucky, that is constantly being ignored. And we're looking for the presence, the beingness, the characteristic that shows up in your life daily or often that actually is getting in the way of your happiness, of a good life. And so I'm going to do the whole thing on myself right now. In the future, I might give sessions to others and we'll see what happens. So basically, the idea for me right now, I'm going to look for, let's say, entities. We're looking for the intruders, the invaders, someone who comes in our space with a negative trait and then hides in the plain sight pretending to be us, and now it's us being exhausted, it's us being lazy, it is us not feeling good and not wanting to do things, and next thing you know, life sucks and you don't feel good and you want things to be better, but there's just nothing happening. So with this little technique, we basically get those personalities or things out of our way and see if that changes our life at least a little bit. It's not gonna like, oh, all of a sudden you're happy and everything's fine, but that little part that makes things a bit harder can be gone. And with that little thing, if you just keep on knocking on it, it might get better. So that being said, um, this probably will be a long video and messy because I'm going to be all over the place. But the idea for me is to kind of like try my best to explain this and do the session on myself so that like a lot of you could try it out for yourself and see what happens. So right now, my goal is to find, let's say, the beingness in my space that makes my life harder. For me, it's kind of like, huh, I need time to think. I know like recently I have had session with Kimberly McGeorge. By the way, if any one of you want to use a really good reading, energy work, or anything else, check out Kimberly McGeorge. You can find her on the website called Secret to Everything. She's a good friend of mine, and I would like recommend her to absolutely everyone. But that being said, I'm looking at, okay, like what is making my life a little bit harder? What is like my traits that I'm seeing in my daily life that kind of like makes it, I don't know, like unpleasant, or I know it could be better, but it's just not happening. And my mission right now, or goal, is to sort of like spot the personality, the beingness I have in my space that is kind of like getting in the way of my success or whatever I want to achieve. So for me, I'm looking like, okay, what do I want to achieve? What do I want to get? And what's getting in the way? I know, like, kind of like what I'm lacking is more workouts. I know I want to work out more, and I'm sort of like doing it a little bit, but I'm not at my maximum. I'm not going like all the way. And I'm putting things off with like, oh, I'm gonna take dog for a walk soon because he like still needs his shot and all this stuff and like waiting and all this stuff. But it's also like putting things off. So like I'm looking at this personality that like let's say postpone things, and that would be a good way to call it a postponer. I guess I would call it like that. I'm gonna write it down. I'm gonna call it a postponer. Basically a part of me, a beingness that constantly sort of like we can do it later. Workout later. Write back to people later. Do this later. And it's kind of like little bit by little bit, but postpones absolutely everything that possible. It's not like I'm lazy fuck. It's just like some of the things, it's like, huh, I know I can do this. I want to do that, but later. And all of a sudden, like, why am I doing this? Like, I'm like reading my own life and business and all this stuff. So, like that is a thing. So, like, postponer is a beingness that I saw. And for me, I want to look for more of them, but we could just go with first one. So let's say, okay, you have spotted a beingness in your space. For me, it is postponer. For you, it can be being ignored, being lazy, unable to manifest, unlucky. Anything in your space, in your life, you know this as a trait, as a like consistently something is happening, and like give it a personality, a label. You need to label that beingness. For me, it is a postponer. So what I do is like the first part is called basically you imagine yourself and another being, that postponer beingness right in front of you. Whether you see it or not doesn't matter. As long as you know who it is. For me, it is the personality that constantly pushes everything like, we can do it a bit later. I know who it is. I define it. I don't have to see it. But like, so like either way you do it, it's going to be fine. Some of you who have visuals can visualize yourself, let's say on this oval table, round table, and like, okay, like that being right in front of you. Or maybe like I like this is like more office like, I don't like it. Maybe campfire, sitting on logs, and here you are, that being, and now you two can talk. What you want to do is create the space, the sovereign space for yourself and that being where you are free to communicate. So basically I'm going in right now. So this postponer, I'm gonna address this. So like basically each and every one of you, as you label the beingness, think of that beingness or being right in front of you. Whether it is the entity, another part of you, the infiltrator, whoever it is, whoever is getting in your way of your success or if you're making your life much better, think of it as, give it a shape. It doesn't matter what it is. But put it right in front of you and like, okay, you are the postponer, you are the lazy person, you're constantly being ignored, um, whatever you wanted to call. And with that, have a conversation. We're gonna start with, so, postponer, from your perspective, what seems to be the problem? We're asking what seems to be the problem because none of us can actually define real problems. We have our own perception, but it does not mean that it is necessarily the truth. We don't know it all. We know a little bit from what we perceive, which is why we are asking what seems to be the problem from our perspective. So, like with that, I'm gonna basically, for me, it is more of a telepathic. Let's say if I stop everything right now, I'm going to close my eyes, I can see the being and I will hear everything, but some of you will not hear anything. Some of you will not see anything. But you can sort of like, okay, I just get an idea, put a label on the being that is getting in the way of my life, whatever it is, and ask a question from your perspective, what seems to be the problem? And you're going to get the answer. In your thoughts, maybe it'll sound exactly like you, just going to be like, oh, well, okay, I guess just my imagination. Why would I doesn't matter. Just whatever the answer is, allow it to come. So I'm going to stop everything right now and do the whole thing. Okay, so postponer. From your perspective, what seems to be the problem? And I'm going to close my eyes. Hey, it's actually funny. I call this beingness, and it shows up in my room, and the dog is like, "What the fuck?" So let's try again. Postponer, from your perspective, what seems to be the problem? And this guy is kind of like this beingness, this pretty much like, hey, I just don't want to do things. Like I'm in your space and I just want to chill, and you constantly are doing stuff, and I just want a moment of quiet time to just chill and relax. And you're constantly busy, 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 which is why like I'm trying to postpone it. So this is like one of the answers I get. I'm gonna try to have a conversation with this being. And the thing is, think of yourself as being a life coach, a psychologist, a good friend that is a real good listener, and be into active listening. You hear the answer and you don't think of what to say. You're more like hearing, understanding what the problem is, and asking more questions. It's not to talk, it is to ask the questions and understand the problem. And it is not to judge, but it's basically like, oh, I see what it is. Okay. So we're going to go with that. I'm going to basically have a conversation with this postponer that I have and see what happens. So if all this, like me being busy and this being is constantly like trying to just relax and chill, um, why are you here in my space? And I'm getting the answer like I've been made to come in your space, like I am forced to be here. And so I ask, like, okay, who forced you to come here? And he says, I cannot tell. Why? Well, because I'm gonna be killed if I do. So with this, it's kind of like a having conversation. For some of you, it will feel like you're talking to yourself. But the thing is, the beings that come into our life, whether it is the entities, our personalities, other beingnesses, other consciousness, they come in our space and they become us. It is called infiltrate, hijack, and consolidate. Basically, they come into your space, they take over, hijack the system, and all of a sudden they start acting like a thriller, like James, like John, like Alina or whoever. And all of a sudden you're gonna have like a lot of beings coming in your space and being you, using your voice, pretending to be you, having like all the characteristics, mimicking you 24/7, and next thing you know, your life sucks, one way or the other. And so with this being, I'm just sort of like saying, okay, so this postponer trying to relax, put here against his own will, forced by someone, he cannot tell who. If that situation comes up, I'm like, I have a few options. I just kick him out. But for me, I like understanding why. What happened? Like, tell me more. I want to see what happened. So, with that, basically, what I'm going to do, you all can do it whether you are using your imagination or your thoughts. It's like create a safe space. But for example, this being right now where we are might feel unsafe. Like, oh, if he tells he's going to be like, he's going to like, how to say, the others that are forcing him to be here in my space will see him as a snitch and it's basically, hey, you betrayed us, you're gonna die. In order to save his life, he has to lie in or at least be quiet and not tell me the specific answers, not tell me the truth about sort of like not giving away the leaders. And it's kind of like a lot of like people in this world, we are seeing like, let's say, scapegoats. We're pointing fingers so like, oh, Trump this, Biden that, and this being that, Russia all this, and like we're seeing all the baddies, but we're not seeing the real deal of what's going on. And all the ones that don't want to see to be seen, they're gonna make sure they're not seen at all. Where they're paying, whether they're like sort of hiding, they're gonna be in quiet and in shadows. So that being said, I'm coming back to this little campfire place I have, and what I can do is like either create a new place or just create the shielding where absolutely no one can enter there. It is a safe space for you to talk. And right now, as I'm talking to you, I'm doing this in my realm, basically, just sort of like making sure this place gets an invisibility shield. No one can penetrate it. And it's like literally leave it all up to your imagination. Do not question yourself. Do not doubt yourself. Just do it and see what happens. Think of it as like work in progress. Like, oh, let's see what happens when we do that. So with that, like, okay, I basically put the shielding and I'll see what this being does. So like I need a moment to focus in and see what happens. So I'm asking this being like, can you talk to me? And he sort of like basically shakes his head. By that, it means, let's say, in this situation, like even when you're trying to sort of like go all safe and make sure that everything's secure, some of the baddies will kind of like have a little bit part of themselves within the entity to kind of like monitor the situation. So what I'm going to do, I have programmed myself, if I touch anything with my left hand, I'm going to retrieve their memories. So I'm going to walk up in front of this being, touch his shoulder or whatever, like hand. And by that, it's kind of like going into them, recalling all of their life and seeing like what happened. So I'm going to do that right now. And right now I'm like seeing this sort of like a base. I can't really describe it because I'm sort of like seeing it from the inside, but it's quite big. It's like being inside a mountain, like in the caves, but it's very open. Like some of you who have played the Mass Effect trilogy, I think in the Mass Effect 2, there's a thing called Harbinger, I assume. It's been a while since I played, but basically in Mass Effect 2, there was this spaceship that had like mm, beings living within. It's kind of like this the final battle place, the suicide mission place, I assume. So if we're looking at that kind of place, it's like a lot of like cocoons and kind of like pods of beings living there, and it's just a place to sort of create the entities, kind of like harvesting beings. spiritually downgrading them so that they would be limited, so that they would lose their powers, so that they would be hijacked and they get fake memories or whatever the programming could be. And so with that, like there's a lot of entities created, and those entities are being sort of like controlled, redirected to people so that they would, like, let's say, get infested, and now our space is kind of like taken over and messed with. So I'm just taking my time seeing what happens, what the hell is going on, and just like try to deal with this being. Okay. And basically, like, for me, when I do these processes, I just take my time and let anything that is out there come in. I'm coming in as a clean slate. Whatever happens, happens, and I don't question it. I'm like more like, I don't question myself in a way where like, oh, I'm just seeing it, let it be. So like, a lot of people will be like, oh, it's my imagination, it just can't be it, and all this stuff. So I'm just going with that. Basically, what happened in my visuals and like all that, the whole place that I've been talking about, it is created by the Greys, and in that they're using the systems where, let's say, cloning humans, or more like using copies of us. It's kind of like taking a photo of us, putting it out there, and they 3D print it out, and now they kind of like have their own little clone. It is not us. It has no relation to us except it looks like us, but it also works like voodoo dolls. And now these voodoo dolls in pods can be messed with, where they're more like you can infest with entities, you can do other things. And the whole idea is there are a lot of people here on Earth that are actually making a quite a big impact. Like, whether you're working on yourself and you're like, hey, people, wake up, or more like you're just sharing your own opinion, you're sharing your own truth, how you understand and see life. And with that, you impact people, and they're like sort of like, they agree with you, they learn, they get better, they grow, you share opinions, and you become great friends and all this stuff. And as communities, a lot of people are getting better, they're growing. But because of that, a lot of us are getting in the way of these beings. It's more like, hey, you're a powerful being, you're constantly getting in the way, you're quite a threat, and we need you to be out of the picture. What did they do to us to be out of the picture? They try to distract us. Distract us with, oh, look, a video game. Oh, look, a movie. Oh, look, that. And constantly giving us things in life where small things like, oh, it's something we like doing, or more like little incidents in life where, like, oh, damn, like, I need to fix that, present that problems and all this stuff. Or we have personalities where we all of a sudden feel lazy, where we don't want to do things, and most like, I don't know, meh. So with that, it's more like, okay, like, just go with it. So like, what I'm seeing is like, on understanding the picture, like, okay, a lot of us are making quite a bit of impact in life, and they're using their own little techniques to distract us. For me, it has been the postponer personality that shows up where like, we can do it later. But that doing it later is kind of like just keeping me in one place. So understanding the picture, I basically destroy the whole place facility that I've seen, sort of like, okay, I'm done with that, no more playing around. And that postponer, I basically create this little place where, like, the world that he can keep on creating and extending by his own needs and preferences, but at the same time he can just chill and have all the time of his life to postpone everything he wants to just enjoy his day. That being said, boom, I sort of release that beingness out of my space. It's kind of like, you don't even imagine kicking the mouse, more like, okay, you're free to go. And so with that, another thing before we wrap it up, at least with this one thing you can do, let's say everyone in my space, any beingness, personality, entity, anyone who does not want to be here, who feels trapped, who was forced to come here, if you want, you have my permission to leave my space. And by saying anything like it, by giving beings in your space a permission to leave, because sometimes they think that like they're serving you, they're doing something with you, and like they have agreements and all stuff. When you give them permission to leave, they leave. And some of you might have like, oh wow, my energy shifted, like I see so many leaving. And some of you like will like be like, I don't know if anything changed, but at least I say what I say, so yeah, whatever works for you. But for me, like, let's say I got rid of that postponer, he's out of the picture. I also allowed anyone who wants to leave my space to leave as well. And that would be it. And we could keep on going with more beingness, but I think this one will be enough for me to wrap it up and continue with maybe with more personalities and whatever shows up. But I think like I will just go on with like keep on working on myself, see what happens. And there you go. So thanks for watching, and hopefully you will use this technique and see what happens. And please let me know in the comments, like if you used, like what happened, what did you see, what did you experience, and did you feel some changes in the upcoming days? That being said, I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.